Is my microphone working now? Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Evanston. I am Eileen Wiviad. I'm the acting senior minister. Whether this church is your spiritual home or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful that you've decided to join us this morning. We are an inclusive community seeking truth and love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us matters and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our oneness, our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the comments section below, including credits to our readings, to virtual religious education for donations, and to be added to our email newsletter list. If you are new to our community, we especially encourage you to click on the link that allows us to keep in touch with you as you get to know our community. A few announcements. The Zoom meeting on Wednesday evenings at 5:30 is open to everyone. We encourage you to attend. The newsletter list gets an email on Wednesday afternoon, and you can click on that link to join the virtual gathering. It's a time of community and connection. And we'll hold virtual coffee hour or coffee and conversation after this service on Zoom. There's also a link for that in the comment section below. There's still time to sign up for and participate in the Mitten Tree Holiday Giving Program. You can find the link in our newsletter and also below. And finally, we hope that you will sign up to participate in our virtual Christmas pageant this year. You can pick out one of the costumes that we have at UCE, or you can get creative at home and be a star or an angel or a donkey or a camel. And you can help us bring the UCE tradition alive once again. And now I invite you to get your chalices ready and set a place for yourselves and your family as we join in beloved community. I'm so pleased to introduce our guest worship leader today, Matt Meyer. He is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist with a long background as a musician and a worship leader for UCE for UU congregations, pardon me. I had the pleasure of seeing him perform at General Assembly some years ago, and he was also a guest at UCE about 4 or 5 years ago. He's inspiring. He's a powerful voice in our movement for music and the arts as a way to empower and embolden social justice. Matt lives in Boston, but travels as an itinerant worship leader, bringing the good news of Unitarian Universalism to hundreds of congregations all over the country. He serves as the director of operations for Sanctuary Boston, a contemporary UU worship community, and a founding organizer of the UU Song Leaders Convergence, a gathering of all UUs who love community singing to share skills, best practices, and songs in order to build a more musical movement together. Please look in the comment section below for links to Matt's email updates and music and worship. Our opening reading this morning is from the late Orlando Brugnola, who was a human rights activist, advocate of interfaith dialogue, member of the International Association of Religious Freedom, and a Unitarian minister and scholar. As we move through life, finding ourselves always newly wise and newly foolish, we ask that our mistakes be small and not hurtful. We ask that as we gain experience, we do not forget our innocence, for they are both part of the whole. Welcome to worship. Carla Williams and Cheryl Mounts light the chalice at UCE in honor of their marriage on October 27th. We light the chalice in northern Illinois on the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, including the Miami, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Fox, also call this area home. We name these in honor and respect. Please join in saying these words by UU Minister Reverend Lois E. Van Leer. We light this chalice not because we must, but because we may. We light this chalice not because we have the truth, but because we each come bearing and seeking many truths. We light this chalice in connection across culture, distance, class, and language. We light this chalice that our religion may be a beacon of light, hope, and justice. We light this chalice to kindle our hearts and our minds. And please join in saying the words of our historic and living covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our opening song this morning is Blessed Motion, written by Annie Zylstra. She was inspired in part by the words of Martin Prechtel, who had survived an earthquake in Guatemala. He spoke of what it was like to have the earth beneath his feet, that which had always been so reliable, so permanent, suddenly in motion. He said the idea, the myth of solid ground is a myth believed by those who live on the earth rather than in it. These days, it can feel like the earth beneath us is shifting quickly and in uncertain ways. And so I invite you into the spirit of this song. Please sing along at home. There's a high part and a low part, some call and response. Find whichever part works best for you, or make up some new parts or some new harmonies. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. Now the low part. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves. We'll do that part two more times. In perfect motion, all is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground till I saw the earth in the ocean motion, the wind, a steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe, solid ground, until I saw the ocean motion, and the wind, a steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion. I'd like to share a story with you all this morning. This is a story about a young girl named Miriam. Now, Miriam was just about to enter the 4th grade, and she was thrilled, because that was the year in her school when every student got to learn an instrument and play in the school orchestra. And Miriam loved music. So on the first day of class, she showed up to the orchestra room extra early. She walked in and she looked around at all of the wonderful instruments. There was the giant bass drum, the beautiful violins, shiny brass trumpets. She wondered which instrument she would get to play in the orchestra. She saw her teacher, Miss Berman, there, and she said, "Here I am. What instrument do you need me to play in the orchestra?" Miss Berman looked at her. "Miriam, right? I think I've got just the right instrument for you." And she disappeared a moment later into her office and came out again with a tambourine. "A tambourine?" Miriam said. "Well, is that even an instrument?" "Well, of course," said Miss Berman. "Every great orchestra needs a great tambourine player, and you are our tambourine player." Well, Miriam took the tambourine, but for the whole rehearsal all day long, she ended up just playing the same rhythm over and over. It went like this. Dot, 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 dot. Can you all try that? Dot, 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 dot. And the next day, the whole day, through the whole rehearsal, she just played that same rhythm over and over again. It went dot, 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 dot. And then Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, the whole rest of the week, it was that same rhythm over and over and over. It went dot, 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 dot. And you might guess Miriam was not any more excited about the tambourine at the end of the week than she had been at the beginning. So that Sunday when she went to church with her family, she was feeling pretty sad about it. She sat down in her Sunday school class, and her teacher Mahesh noticed that she was looking down. He asked her about it. She said, "Well, I was so excited to learn an instrument and play in the school orchestra, but I ended up with the tambourine, and I just play the same rhythm all week long. It goes dot, 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 dot." "The tambourine," Mahesh said. He said, "Did you know that where my family is from in southern India, we call it a kanjira?" Can you say that? Kanjira. He said, people spend their whole lives learning to play the kanjira. It's a beautiful and complicated instrument. And every sound that you can make on the kanjira, you can also sing. And so people put the sounds, the rhythms of the kanjira together to make poetry out of the rhythms of it. Takitatum katatingi natum tatum. People write whole books of the poetry of the kanjira. Where I come from, he said, the tambourine is an instrument for creating poetry and, beauty in the world. Poetry and beauty, Miriam said. Can you all say poetry and beauty? Well, that doesn't sound so bad. After church, all the adults were running around at coffee hour, but Miriam sat by herself, and a family friend came to join her. Anna sat with her, and Anna remembered. She said, "This was the week you were going to begin the 4th grade and play in the school orchestra. How's it going?" "Well," Miriam said, "I ended up with the tambourine, and I just play the same rhythm all week long. It goes dot, 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 dot." "The tambourine," Anna said. She said, "Did you know that where my family is from in Brazil, we call it a pandeiro? Can you say pandeiro?" She said, "People have been playing the pandeiro for generations in Brazil. And in fact," she said, "when my ancestors were brought to Brazil as enslaved people, they would play the pandeiro as a way to bring the community together, to sing and dance and take care of each other even when times were so difficult. And they would even use the music of the pandeiro to secretly practice martial arts to protect themselves against the people that held them as slaves." Well, where I come from, the tambourine is an instrument for creating community and safety. Safety and community, Miriam said. Can you all say safety and community? Well, that doesn't sound so bad. So Miriam was thinking about all of this when she went back to school the next day. She saw her teacher, Ms. Berman, there, and she told her about the canjira and the pandeiro, about poetry and beauty and safety and community. But she said, "I don't know what any of that has to do with me. I'm still playing the same rhythm all week long that goes dot, 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 dot." "Well," Ms. Berman said. She said, "Miriam, do you know where your name comes from?" "Well, of course. From my parents." "Well, right," said Ms. Berman, but do you know who Miriam was?" She said, "In your family's history, there's a story of the ancient Israelites fleeing slavery in Egypt to travel towards freedom. And while they were making their way on their path to freedom, when they were making that dangerous journey, they stopped to celebrate that they were on their way to a better place. And it was a woman named Miriam who got that party started with her tambourine. And women like Miriam in ancient Israel and all over the Middle East would play the tambourine for weddings and festivals and celebrations. In your family's history, the tambourine was a way of celebrating love and celebrating freedom." "Love and freedom," Miriam said. Well, that sounds pretty good. Eventually, Miriam went on to try out some of the other instruments in the orchestra. She played a bit of the bass drum and tried out the violin and played some trumpet, but she always remembered this story of the tambourine. How all around the world and all throughout history, people had taken the simplest of instruments they had in their hands and found ways to use those tools to shape their community, to create poetry and beauty, safety and community, to celebrate the journey we're all trying to make towards love and freedom. Part of what we do here on Sunday mornings when we gather to worship in whatever ways we gather is not just to come together and remind each other about the values that are most important to us, but to think together and even challenge each other to think of how we can use whatever instruments, whatever tools we have in our hands to shape the world around us, to create the kind of world we want to live in together. May it be so.
These are the joys and sorrows that have been submitted through the Google form found on our website on the homepage. You can always also send me an email or one to Reverend Susan Francis. From Harry Hirsch, I received a wonderful Thanksgiving gift from my son and daughter-in-law, a video of my 7-month-old great-granddaughter, Charlotte. That's one great. What a joy. Congratulations, Harry. From Melanie Kitchener, no travel necessary to have family in Ocean City, New Jersey, Chicago, Wallingford, PA, and Boston on Thanksgiving. We were all thankful for Zoom. From Linda LaPlante, thanks to all who sent me their support and good wishes through my wrist fracture and surgery. I am healing well and anticipating better times. From Martha Holman, I am grateful that Wayne's arm is healing well without surgery. Thanks for all of your good wishes. From Betty Walker and the Independence Covenant Group, both a joy and a concern for Mary Jean Brandt, who had surgery for a ruptured appendix on November 26th. The surgery had been delayed because of a dangerous infection, but she is now on the mend and will hopefully be home on Friday. She's able to talk on the phone. And thanks to her housemate, John, and to Julia Takarada, whose care and attention probably saved her life. From Amy Grabowski, my 92-year-old father, Walter Yandel, died on November 27th. He had a stroke and third-degree burns in January of this year and has gone downhill from there. The circumstances of his death are being investigated by police. From Maxine Lappin, my beloved Aunt Marta passed away on Thursday after a years-long battle with cancer. She had the biggest, most loving personality, and we will miss her so much. From Brennan Baker, if you could keep my mom and sister in your thoughts and prayers, that would be great. My mom has COVID, and my sister who lives with her is also having symptoms. Their names are Letha and Michaela. And I share a sorrow from the ministers at Northminster Presbyterian. I got word this morning that their Black Lives Matter banner has been vandalized. We hold our community, our wider community, in solidarity and commitment to not back down from the resistance of racism and white supremacy in our community. We know that these are not the only joys and sorrows that are on our hearts. Let us take a moment of quiet now to read to ourselves those that have been added to the chat. We hold these in care and tenderness. And I invite you to say aloud the names of those who you are holding in your heart, those who are sick or who have died, as we let their names gather on the winds to be held in this community that knows no walls. Together, we expand our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, source of abundant love, there is much to be grateful for. Our health and well-being, and that of our loved ones. Food to nourish our bodies, shelter to protect us, and the beautiful earth which is our home. May we cultivate gratitude and may it manifest in compassionate giving. Along with our gratitude, let us not dismiss or turn away from the deep sorrows and struggles we witness and carry. 266,000 deaths in the US, 1,400,000 worldwide. Each of these lives immeasurable in value, with untold possibility lost to a virus some are trying to pretend doesn't exist, while others risk everything to heal, protect, and care for their community. May those who are doing the hard, loving work be fortified and protected. May the collective goodness within, among, and beyond us gather and rise up to resist the forces of indifference, hate, and fear. May we have the strength to hold it all together. The tremendous beauty and our thanks for what is life-giving, along with the terrible suffering and harm caused each day. And if we don't have the strength to hold all that, may we have what we need to move through another day, to keep living and loving and adding our bit of joy and beauty and thanks. May we continue to care for one another. May we continue to strive until all beings know liberation, joy, and peace. May it be so. UCE remains a vital part of the world and our community, and because we continue to need one another in the blessings of community, we take this time to invite you to give to our shared plate. Today's offering will be shared with Deborah's Place, and Jean Durkin shares a message about their important work.
Hi, I'm Jean Durkin. I've been a UCE member for the last 20 years, and I've been working at Deborah's Place since 1987. Today, I'm grateful for all the volunteering and financial support that UCE has offered us over the many, many years. Let me tell you some good news about our last fiscal quarter. 412 women were served, and over 90% had health insurance. They maintained stable housing. They increased or maintained their income. And these are women who have come from the streets and the shelters seeking a permanent end to their experience of homelessness. We at Deborah's Place have supported them as they have done the hard work needed to come home. During the pandemic, our tenants are maintaining their housing, and they're trying to stay as connected as they can with family and friends. But we are seeing a greater symptoms of mental and physical health issues during the isolation. The isolation is taking its toll on us. Mask donations and PPE are keeping us safe. Social distance is becoming more automatic. It's with the generous support of the Unitarian Church of Evanston and other donors that we've been able to maintain our services and keep our residents and staff safe as we follow the CDC guidelines. Here at Deborah's Place, we weave together supportive housing with a menu of voluntary evidence-based services. We deliver these services in an intentional environment that recognizes each woman's strength and ability and fosters a sense of belonging and community. Even with the challenge of COVID, we find ways to continue to engage this vulnerable population. We've made sure that the participants were counted both in the census and voting. For over 35 years at Deborah's Place, we've been using external research and internal data to develop and deliver our effective programs and services. We know that the women who experience chronic homelessness can overcome complex barriers to housing, health, and stability when they have what they need to be successful: access to affordable and appropriate housing, adequate health care, regular income, and positive social supports. If you have any questions about the work of Deborah's Place, feel free to contact me or check out our website at www.deborahsplace.org. Thanks so much. I really do appreciate you, and I'll see you. I'll see you around. Bye.
It is such an important way that we live out our values and do the work of social justice by giving financially. It's one way. It's not the only way, but it is an important way. You can text to give, send in a check, or give from our website. And if you send in a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy.
These words from Mickey Scott Bay Jones in her Invitation to Brave Space. Together, we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify the voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and more love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. I start off most days with a to-do list, usually scribbled on a post-it note in the corner of my desk. And on that list most days is writing, but it's something I struggle to make time for. One of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott, talks about how hard it is, in fact, to just sit down every day and put your butt in the chair and make time for writing. She says the discouraging voices will hound you. This is all piffle, they will say. And they may be right. What you are doing may just be practice, but practice is how you're going to get better. Some of the best writing advice I ever got was from a teacher who said, for now, don't write. Just write what you would write if you were going to write. I sometimes feel like in all the years since I got that advice, I haven't written anything yet, but I have written a lot about what I would write if I did. You might call this the practice of practicing, learning how to practice. The demons of perfectionism stand in the way of good writing, just as they stand in the way of creative risk-taking in general. which is unfortunate because building a life for yourself that doesn't yet exist in any way requires some creative risk-taking. And certainly these days, being your best self, even in uncertain and anxious times such as these, requires setting aside those discouraging voices that show up. And perhaps even more so, trying to build a world of justice and equity and compassion when the fires are burning, when violence is still too much with us. Well, that requires setting aside the voices that say your efforts are just piffle. When the demons of perfectionism show up like that for me, I try to practice the practice of showing up for myself and for others. Learning how to practice has certainly been part of my journey as a musician. One of the requirements for all students at Berklee College of Music, where I attended years ago, was 4 semesters of ear training. Now, ear training is learning how to sing a song just by reading the notes on the page, and learning how to write down the notes of a song just by listening to it. Now, when I first began school, I knew that there certainly were people who were capable of this kind of magic, but it all seemed like some kind of Harry Potter nonsense to me. Like, you may as well ask me to make a feather float above my desk using a conductor's baton. I remember on the first day of that first ear training class, my first day of college, I showed up with a sort of nervous silence that fell over the classroom. Silence except actually for one student who was quite loud in his nervousness. This one student interrupted the teacher in the first few minutes of the first day to say that he was worried the class was going to be too advanced for him. He wanted to make it clear that he knew, in fact, not a single thing about ear training. Well, the teacher kindly interrupted his introductions to explain that we had all taken entrance exams and he was sure we'd been placed in the appropriate class. The teacher tried to continue, but was interrupted again. Well, the man said, "Is this the very lowest class? Because I need to be in the very lowest class." Now you could tell our poor teacher looked around the room a little sheepishly, not wanting to answer that yes, we were in fact a class of the most basic students. He said, "Well, this is Ear Training 101, so it's just about the lowest. I guess there is a class for people that have previously failed the 101, but you all are just about the lowest." Now, some of the other students giggled a little bit at this man's anxieties. But I was actually kind of glad to hear that someone was questioning the absurd notion that sight singing could be taught. I don't know what happened next for that student, but he actually never came back to our class. Not because anything we did on that first day was in fact too hard for him, I'm sure of it. But I think he just lacked a belief that improvement was even possible. I kept going, thinking that if other students had done this before, it must somehow be possible, and I committed to at least practicing the material. I've always remembered that other student, though, who gave up before he'd even started. It's not just that he didn't try and become a master ear trainer. It was that he didn't even try the practicing of it, which always struck me as the real loss. When the discouraging voices hound me, I sometimes think of that student and remind myself that maybe for now what I'm doing is just practice. But practice is how I'm going to get better. These last few months have been a time of uprisings calling for change in our country, calling on those of us in power, which in some ways is all of us, to play a different role, to learn a new tune, to learn some new skills for our communities. Particularly for white folks, this is a time to practice some new skills and learn to play a new role in our world. It's a time for studying up on the racist history of our country and the racist present of it. It's a time for listening in deeper ways we haven't always done so well before, and a time for having hard conversations we haven't yet practiced enough. Fellow white folks, if you hear people of color making demands these days, I invite you to practice amplifying those demands by repeating them in calls to your representatives, to your colleagues, and to your family. If you've inherited wealth that was accumulated in a time of systematic segregation, which is true of all wealth in this country, now is a good time to practice giving it away. If your muscle memory has been to call the police when something goes wrong, now is a good time to practice something different, learning new skills for community safety and accountability. I know I won't all of a sudden do all of these, but I will practice the doing of them. Let us practice together. Musicians know as well as anyone that muscle memory is very real, that consistent practice changes the very structure of our brains, rewiring our circuitry and forging new connections and new possibilities. No one is born a musician. Even elder birds need songbirds to sing to them and teach them the tunes. Practice doesn't make music perfect, but it makes music possible. And so let us practice the practicing. Let us learn to practice together in community, in relationship to each other, calling each other to more truth and more love. Practice won't make the world perfect, but it makes a better world possible. Someday I want to be a true expert in compassion and justice when anxiety moves in the air like a storm. Someday I want to be well practiced at creating brave space even when there is no such thing as safe space. Someday I want to be well practiced at amplifying the voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. And these are daunting tasks to be sure. On most days, learning to transcribe a symphony seems more manageable. But that's okay. For now, I don't have to do all of those things. I just need to practice doing what I would do if I were doing them. So, dear ones, don't promise to be your best self today. Just practice being the person you would be if you were being your best self. Don't try to create a new world in the shell of this old empire this week. Don't try to forge a perfect world of love and compassion this month. Just do what you would do if you had committed to such things. You have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We all have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. And so let us start together. Let us grow together. And let us practice together. May it be so.
As Carla and Cheryl extinguish the chalice, please join in saying these words written by Matt Meyer. May we go forward in purposeful rhythm, that we may give voice to the melody of our imaginations, the music of our souls, and all the possibilities of a just world as we might together create it.
Our closing song is Let the Life I Lead Speak for Me. I originally had learned that the song was a traditional folk tune, but it turns out that it was actually adapted from a 70s R&B group, the Consolers. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the friends I have speak for me. Let the friends I have speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the work I do, let the work I do speak for me. Let the work I do speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the work I do speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the love I share speak for me. Let the life I lead, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. Beloveds, don't try to be your best self today. Just be the person you would be if you were practicing being your best self. Don't try to build a new world in the image of love this week. Just do what you would do if you had committed to such things. You have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We all have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. And so let us start together. Let us grow together. And let us practice together. Go in peace, go in love, and go and be blessed as you are a blessing to others.